A thousand gifts, an introduction. This is only an introduction, for the power of what is suggested seems greater than what has been effectively scrutinized and developed. Reciprocal indebtedness, at the same time voluntary and compulsory, replacing the war of all against all and the utilitarian notion of profit. Rubin, 1975. Weiner, 1976. Stratham, 1988. This collaboration between Peter W. Schultz, a scholar in arts, literary and media studies, with special emphasis on Brazilian culture at the UZK, and Nuno Ramos, a Brazilian artist and writer, responds to. Facing a great acceleration driven by the neoliberal economy, the rules of the game, summary, proposal, published books, shrouded in the mystery of its ambivalence and almost infinite suggestiveness. The key word is the interdisciplinary activities would be modulated by some general properties of the gift, such as A. Asymmetry, B. Uselessness, C. D. Voluntariness, obligation. The operation is obligatorily free. E. The relationship is open and, at the limit, endless. F. G. H. The power of loss. I. The power of loss. To realize this project in April and May 2023 in Köln, we will launch Only words are exchanged in this introduction. Is that A. Enough, B. Stupid, C. Naive? Bibliography. The X means for, like this for that. So, when we say for, we mean that the two fragments above and beneath the X should be understood as concretely as possible and put into an exchange situation, this for that. As everybody knows, singing would be much better instead of reading. This is only an introduction.
Gift 1. Minimal pain or brief discomfort. 4.
A few weeks later, while engaged in a hunting expedition, Stadin was captured by a party belonging to the Tupinambá people of Brazil, an enemy group of the Tupiniquim people and their Portuguese allies. As Stadin was part of a Portuguese crew, he was perceived of as an enemy of the Tupinambá, and they carried him to their village, where he was to be devoured at the next festivity. The lecture I must deliver in response to your request will necessarily disappoint you in different ways. 4.
Polio, smallpox, diphtheria, cholera, and measles. Gift 4. They may be our victims, but they are not our slaves. 4.
Complete absence of sound. Gift 7. Whether mammals feel pain like we do is unknown, says. 4.
Superheated gases such as ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, and methane curl in the atmosphere, zapped everywhere and at every moment by lightning. The very oceans hang unfallen, unrained, a sphere of steam, eclipsing any semblance of sun. Beneath these vapors, thick with formaldehyde and cyanide, the boiling crust of the surface pulsates with radioactivity and heat. Gift 9. Politics as vocation, in German, Politik als Beruf, by German economist and sociologist. 4.
You can't taxidermy your pet, especially if you are having a hard time saying goodbye. Gift 10. Every science has principles from which it derives its system. One of the principles of political economy is free labor. Now, in Brazil, the impolitic and abominable fact of slavery dominates. This argument, summarized in a liberal pamphlet of the 19th century, puts Brazil outside the system of science. We were rather a moral, impolitic, and abominable fact. 4.
If the gift received or exchanged obligates, it is because the thing received is not inert. Even abandoned by the giver, it retains something of him. Through it, he has a strong power over the beneficiary, and even over an eventual thief. Gift 11. As you bend with the rigid blade of your scalpel over the unknown corpse, remember that this body was born of the love of two souls. 4.
Bad English, as mine. Gift 12. Removes toxins from the body's blood supply, maintains healthy blood sugar levels, regulates blood clotting, and performs hundreds of other vital functions. It is located beneath the rib cage where 4.
Adam Smith, Alfred Marshall, Millicent Fawcett, John Maynard Keynes, Milton Friedman, Paul Samuelson, Eleanor Ostrom, Joseph Stiglitz, Esther Dufler. Gift 13. Yes, your pet can feel depressed. 4.
The corpse is that of the criminal, Aries Kint, alias of Adrian Zun, who was convicted for armed robbery and sentenced to death by hanging. He was executed earlier on the same day of the scene. The face of the corpse is partially shaded, a suggestion of umbra mortis, shadow of death, a technique that Rembrandt was to use frequently. Gift 15. Because the human body is composed mostly of water and its only highly flammable properties are fat tissue and methane gas, spontaneous human combustion is highly improbable. 4.
Acts of speech, Austin. Gift 17. Clever Hans, German, der kluge Hans, 1895 to 1916, was a horse that was claimed to have performed arithmetic and other intellectual tasks. Hans solved calculations by tapping numbers or letters with his hoof in order to answer questions. 4.
Antonio Gramsci. Gift 20. 8th of May 2023. 4.
The wood remains wooden when it is made into a table. It is then an ordinary, sensuous thing. It is quite different when it becomes a commodity. When the curtain goes up on the market and a table plays the actor and character at the same time. When commodity table, says Marx, comes on stage, begins to walk around and to put itself forward as market value. Coup de théâtre. The ordinary, sensuous thing is transfigured. It becomes someone. It assumes a figure. This woody and headstrong denseness is metamorphosed into a supernatural thing. The commodity thus haunts the thing. Its spectre is at work in use value. This haunting displaces itself like an anonymous silhouette or the figure of an extra, figurante, who might be the principal or capital character. Gift 21. Pythagoras prevented a person from continuing to beat a dog because he had recognized the voice of a friend in his howls of pain. 4.
Each of a pair of organs in the abdominal cavity of mammals, excreting urine. Gift 23. Therefore, it is only the amount of socially necessary labor or socially necessary labor time for the production of a use value that determines the magnitude of its value. 4.
Fire is geologically a recent phenomenon. It wasn't until the colonization of the continents by tall-stemmed, tough-bodied plants some 400 million years ago that the fire assemblage, with all its possibilities, came together. Gift 24. Around the year 1000, Cardinal Pietro Damiani insisted that birds bloom from fruits and ducks emerge from seashells. English scholar Alexander Necker specified that fir trees exposed to sea salt give rise to geese. The Flemish alchemist-physician Jan Baptist van Helmont, 1580 to 1644, shared his recipe for making mice from dirty underwear.
In living organisms and cells, the process of eliminating waste matter. Gift 25. I use the words you taught me. If they don't mean anything anymore, teach me others, or let me be silent.
Dimethoxy methamphetamine, dimethyltryptamine, ditron piperidylbenzylate, lysergic acid dithylamide 25, LSD, mescaline, methyl N-dioxyamphetamine, MDA, peyote, penicillidine, PCP, psilocybin. Gift 26. People who took part in the work of burning the corpses say that these grill pits were like giant volcanoes. The heat seared the workers' faces. Flames erupted 8 or 10 feet into the air. Pillars of thick, greasy smoke reached up into the sky and stood there, heavy and motionless. At night, people from villages 30 or 40 kilometers away could see these flames curling above the pine forest that surrounded the camp. 4.
Everything we get outside the free gifts of nature must in some way be paid for. Gift 28. Our fire destroys what it burns. Therefore, the more intense it is, the shorter it is. But that fire with which the damned shall be forever tormented shall burn without ever consuming, and is therefore compared unto salt, for everything will be salted with fire. Torturing them with inconceivable heat in nature of fire will also hinder them from being corrupted. 4.
Rhino horns, which are made of keratin, like your fingernails, have long been used in traditional Chinese medicine, but in recent years have become even more sought after as a high-end party drug. At clubs in Southeast Asia, powdered horn is snorted like cocaine. Gift 29. Cézanne used to ask his wife to pose like an apple. 4.
The delicious but diseased liver of an animal who has suffered enormously. Gift 30. The interval between death and return is usually 6 to 7 days, according to Roshi Izutani. Plato's Republic speaks of an interval of a millennium. Bhagavad Gita of an immensity of years. Madame Blavatsky estimates the interval between incarnations at between 1,000 and 1,500 years. John Grant, the English psychologist who was an Egyptian princess in her last incarnation, suggests 5,000 years as the interval between her two incarnations. 4.
Walt Disney Films did not invent the Lemmings Death March myth, but they did propagate it. Allegedly, the crew of White Wilderness, released in 1958, built devices to herd and hurtle the creatures of a cliff. They staged it as they were unable to observe and record the supposed phenomenon in nature. Gift 31. For at least 150 years, storm names were fraught with personal preferences and vendettas. Although there was plenty of precedent for naming storms, after both women and men, the US decided in the early 1950s to settle on a system that only used female names. It is not entirely clear why, but the maritime tradition of referring to the ocean as a woman have played a factor. Once these storms took on female names, weathermen began to use cliches to describe their behavior, saying that this one was a temperamental, or the other was a teasing or flirting one with the coastline. 4.
I adopted the doctrine of reincarnation when I was 26 years old. My religion offered nothing that suited me. Even my work did not give me any more complete satisfaction. Work is futile if we cannot utilize the experience we collect in this life in another life. When I discovered reincarnation, time was no longer limited. I was no longer a slave in the hands of the clock. I would like to show others the calmness that this comprehensive view of life brings. Henry Ford. Gift 32. An essay on gift. 4.
Polio, smallpox, diphtheria, cholera, and measles. Gift 33. Ne me quitte pas. 4.
When we no longer feel pain, then we are at the very limit. This is no longer our body, but the world outside us. Gift 34. As an engine of infinite expansion and accumulation, capitalism cannot, by definition, move forward in a finite world. 4.
According to studies, Schumann's symptoms during his terminal illness and death appear consistent with those of mercury poisoning. Mercury was a common treatment for syphilis and other conditions. Another possibility is that his neurological problems were a result of an intracranial mass. A report by Janisch in Neuhaus on Schumann's autopsy indicates that he had a gelatinous tumor at the base of his brain. It may have represented a calloid cyst, a craniopharyngioma, a cardioma, or a cardioid meningioma. In particular, meningiomas are known to produce musical auditory hallucinations, such as Schumann reported. It has also been hypothesized that he had schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type or bipolar disorder, and bipolar second disorder. Gift 35. An enlarged and rigid state of the penis. Four.
Examples of white noise. Gift 37. It is closely related to another characteristic of classical logic, in which any truth can be replaced by any other truth as long as it preserves properties of implication, syllogisms.
Solar anus. The following chapter is about killing in war, from an a priori, moral perspective, and not a legal, posteriori one. 4.
Quando o verde dos seus olhos se espalhar na plantação, eu lhe asseguro, não chores não, que eu voltarei meu coração. Eu lhe asseguro, não chores não, que eu voltarei meu coração. Gift 40. Fontenelle, when he visited Malebranche, would have cried out in compassion as he witnessed the priest-philosopher kick the pregnant bitch in the womb as she sought the comfort of his feet. Malebranche then would have replied coldly, "What? Don't you know that this is a machine and therefore it feels nothing?" 4.
Number of detainees. China, 1,690,000. United States, 1,675,400. Brazil, 835,643. India, 554,034. Brought together. 4.
Gift 42. One day on a walk, she saw a cat giving birth in a covert. Prevented from fleeing by being in the midst of labor, the cat snarled. A poor creature, having her children in a damp, filthy place, and yet ready to lay down her life to defend them. She then explains that she felt herself, at that moment, deeply questioned. I'm also a mother. So, she decided, at once and without any rationalization, that in the matter of cats, she would turn her back on her own tribe, the hunters, and side with the tribe of the hunted. 4.
The old woman was bareheaded as usual. Her light, grey, sparse hair, abundantly oiled, formed a small braid, held back from the neck by a fragment of a comb. As she was short, the blow hit her in the temples. Gift 43. Rotator. 4.
4. As Voltaire used to say, to be born twice is no more surprising than to be born once. Gift 45. The long and slow column arrived on a Sunday morning, declaring King Victor Emmanuel deposed. Then it performed the anarchist ritual of setting fire to the archives containing the property, debt, and tax records of the whole city's population. 4.
I think it is possible that in the world there is evil, and that there are some people who are evil. I think of some of the monsters of history who perpetrated the most evil deeds. But maybe God whispered in the monster's ears and said, "Do this for me and do not question, because you cannot see the whole of my plan." Maybe. Gift 46. The temporary donor of the uterus cannot be the donor of the eggs or embryos. 4.
Bourgeois subjects, national subjects, postmodern subjects, post-colonial subjects, African subjects, neo-colonial global South subjects, cracked subjects of the modern state, Cartesian selves, Calvinist selves, Milanesian subjects, neoliberal selves, selfish subaltern selves, globalized selves, hybridized selves, late socialist selves, orgasmic selves, mourning selves, post-traumatic selves, judicialized selves, narcissistic selves, etceterized subjects. Gift 47. The uncle rat TM is my brother, and better said, male or female, he, she is my sister. Although its promise is decidedly secular, it is a figure in the sense developed within Christian realism. He, she is our scapegoat. He, she carries our suffering. He, she signifies and represents our mortality in a powerful, historically specific way that promises a culturally privileged hymn of secular salvation, a cure for cancer. Whether or not I agree with its use, it suffers repeatedly and deeply so that I and my sisters can live. In the experimental way of life, the uncle rat TM is the experiment. If not in my own body, then certainly in the bodies of my friends, I will one day owe a great debt to Uncle Rat TM or its subsequently engineered rodent relatives. 4.
Gregory Bateson. Gift 48. What is surprising is the tension between the petrification of the bones, their strange coldness, and, on the other hand, the persistent desire to make sense, to signify something, leaving behind, for the ones that are still alive, some clues. 4.
The monarch postponed the execution of his wife from day to day and ended by renouncing his sanguinary resolution altogether. Gift 49. Vernadsky contrasted gravity, which pulls the matter vertically toward the center of the earth, with life, always growing, running, swimming, and flying. Life, challenging gravity, moves matter horizontally across the surface of the planet. 4.
Let's do it. Let's fall in love. Night and day. It's the lovely. Begin to begin. Just one of those things. I get a kick out of you. You're the top. I've got you under my skin. I happen to like New York. Love for sake. Gift 50.
Gift 52. In Invasion of the Body's Natures by Don Siegel, Plant spores have fallen from space and grown into large seed pods, each one capable of reproducing a visually identical copy of a human. As each pod reaches full development, it assimilates the physical traits, memories, and personalities of each sleeping person, placed near it until only the replacement is left. These replicas, however, are devoid of all human emotion. 4.
Translated with www.deepl.com/translator, free version. Gift 59. Why don't we do it in the road? 4.
Strictly economic or material interests are secondary to the interests of glory or fame. Gift 60. The other experiment, which I am unlikely to do again, for it seemed cruel to me, was with a dog, which, by means of a pair of bellows with which I filled its lungs, opening its thorax and cutting out all the ribs, I was able to preserve alive for as long as I wished. My desire was to make some investigations into the nature of breathing, but I confess that I am unlikely to make any further attempts of this kind because of the creature's torture. Certainly, however, the investigation would be noble if we could find a way to stupefy the creature by sedating it, so that it would not be sensitive. 4.
I miss you so tremendously. Gift 63. The fact that we were born is a bad omen for immortality. 4.
Madam, I'm Adam, a very well-known palindrome. Gift 64. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is aberrant to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of the nation first. This nation needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress in a period when our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office. As I recall the high hopes for America, 4.
Rats have a Hardarian gland behind their eyes, which secretes, during times of stress, a substance called porphyrin. Gift 65. Naked flesh, naked boulder, naked tree, naked you, naked me, naked something. 4.
It will be necessary not to impose the work, but on the opposite, to forbid it. The Rothschild will be allowed to prove that they have been perfect vagabonds all their lives. Gift 67. The windowless pools where the Poli cells are kept alive, sort of, is called the frozen zoo. The name is trademarked, and if other institutions try to use it, they are advised they are breaking the law. The room holds half a dozen tanks, and stored inside them, in frigid clouds of nitrogen, are cell lines representing nearly 1,000 species. 4.
He judges not as the judge judges, but as the sun falling round a helpless thing. Gift 68. And then we saw the girl. She cried out bitterly with a sound like the piercing note of a bird when she sees her empty nest robbed of her young. Just so did she cry out, weeping, when she saw the corpse of her brother laid bare, and called down curses on those who had done the deed. At once she brought in her hands thirsty dust, and from the well-wrought brazen urn that she was carrying, she poured over the corpse a threefold libation. For
me. Gift 77. Listen, he repeated slowly, almost in a whisper. I don't know how the Barcina works. I don't know how the work in the field runs, or what a poor mujik and a rich mujik mean. I don't know what a quarter of oats or rye means. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know what is harvested and sown in which month, or how and when it is sold. I don't know if I'm rich or poor, nor do I know if in a year's time I'll have a full belly or be a beggar. I don't know anything, concluded Oblomov dejectedly, loosening the lapels of his uniform and walking away from Ivan Matveyevich. So, talk to me and advise me like a child. For
ni foi, ni roi, ni loi.
Thank you.